Roronoa Zoro never needed to know the way. He's been getting lost for over 1,000 episodes. The goal has never moved once. This video is about what makes both of those things true and what it means for every goal you've ever backed away from. Here's the strange part about Zoro getting lost. It's not that he doesn't know where he's going. He always knows where he's going. He just can't find it. And here's what makes that genuinely strange. Because on the same ship, the same crew, is the one person who always knows exactly where she's going. Nami, the Straw Hat's navigator, the person whose entire value to the crew is knowing the path. Every ocean, every island, every route. She has the map. She knows the way. Zoro has never once stopped to ask which way. He moves, he gets lost, the goal doesn't change. Not because he's stubborn, not because he doesn't trust her, because for Zoro, knowing the path and having the goal were never the same thing. Same ship, same journey, same destination. Completely different relationships to the route. Here's where this gets personal. Think about a goal you backed away from. Not abandoned, backed away from. Something you still think about. Something that still has weight. The moment it started to feel out of reach, what changed? Not the goal, the path. You couldn't see how to get there, and somewhere along the way, not being able to see how became evidence that maybe you shouldn't. That maybe the goal was less real than you thought. The goal didn't move. Your read on the path made it feel like it did. That's not a personal failure. That's just what happens when goal and path are connected in your head. When I don't know how automatically becomes maybe I shouldn't. Zoro's psychology doesn't work that way. The conditions change. The path is always unclear. The goal is exactly where it was. And the question this video is actually asking, the one that matters beyond Zoro specifically, is this. What would it mean for your goals if those two things were separate? If not knowing the path couldn't touch the goal? Because for Zoro, they've always been separate. The goal was part of who he was before he ever had a route. Watch this moment. This is where the goal starts. Not a plan, not a route, not a strategy for becoming the world's greatest swordsman. A promise made over a grave before he has any idea how to keep it. The goal came first. The path never existed yet. And that order, goal before path, is the thing that everything else in Zoro's arc runs on. That's not the same as having no direction. That's having a direction so locked in that the route becomes a detail. Here's what most people assume about Zoro getting lost. They assume it costs him something, that every time he goes the wrong direction, there's a moment, even a small one, where the goal feels further away. That's not what happens. Watch what getting lost actually does to Zoro. Nothing. Not suppressed frustration, not hidden doubt, not discipline overriding uncertainty. Nothing. Because the path being wrong has no connection to whether the goal is right. Look at him here. He's going the wrong way. And look at what's on his face. The goal, still there, not faded, not questioned, not contingent on the path being clear. That's not willpower. Willpower is when you feel something pulling you off course and you resist it. This is something else. The getting lost has no leverage over the goal because they were never connected. And here's why that matters. Because this is the counter insight most people miss entirely. The getting lost isn't the problem Zoro overcomes. The getting lost is the proof that the separation already exists. Think about what that means. If knowing the way and having the goal were connected in Zoro's head, then 1,000 episodes of getting lost would have produced at least one moment of visible goal uncertainty. There isn't one. 3 different oceans, 3 different arcs, years apart, same goal, same face. The path changed constantly. The goal never reacted to it. But here's the harder question, and it's the one this video is building toward. Zoro never had to build that separation. The goal was set before any route existed. He grew up that way. What about someone who built the goal after the path was already part of their thinking? What happens when path uncertainty arrives for someone who didn't start this way? That's what Nami's arc actually shows. And it's the most useful thing in this entire video, because that's the version most people are actually living. Zoro never had to learn to separate those two things. Nami did. And watching how that happens is what changes the goal from something you have into something you keep. Let's talk about Nami for a second. Not as the navigator, as someone with a goal. She had a goal for 8 years, to free her village from Arlong, get the money, buy Kokoyashi's freedom. The goal was real. The love behind it was real. Nobody questions that. But for 8 years, the path was impossible. Arlong was protected by the Marines. Every route to freeing the village ran through a wall she couldn't get past. And slowly, not because she was weak, but because the path and the goal were connected in her thinking, the impossibility of the path started to make the goal feel out of reach. She kept working, she kept drawing the maps, she kept trying to get the money, but she stopped believing the goal was actually possible. Watch this moment. 8 years, real goal, impossible path. And what you're watching isn't someone who gave up. It's someone whose goal survived, but whose belief in the goal's reachability didn't. When the path being possible is what keeps the goal feeling real, the path being impossible makes the goal feel impossible too. That's not a character flaw. That's just how the wiring works when the two things aren't separated. The goal didn't change, the path did. And the moment the path opened, the goal came back to full strength immediately. Which tells you something important. The goal was always there. It just needed the path to be possible before it felt reachable. That's the version most of us are living. Not Nami's specific situation, but the structure of it. A real goal, a path that feels impossible right now. And the slow, almost invisible process of the goal starting to feel less certain because the route isn't clear. The goal didn't actually move. The path made it feel like it did. Now look at Zoro. Same world, same crew. A moment where the path doesn't just get unclear, it gets completely destroyed. This is Zoro after losing to Mihawk. Not lost in the wrong direction, not delayed by bad navigation. Beaten. Completely. By the person he needs to surpass to reach the goal. And watch what that loss does to the goal. Nothing. Because the loss, as catastrophic as it is to the path, has no leverage over whether the destination is real. He doesn't say, "I'll find a new way." He says, "Nothing happened here," and he means it. Not as bravado, as a simple fact about how the goal and the loss have nothing to do with each other. The path to being the world's greatest swordsman just got harder. The goal of being the world's greatest swordsman didn't move a millimeter. And here's the thing about that moment that most analysts miss. The Mihawk loss isn't Zoro being strong enough to keep going despite the setback. It's Zoro demonstrating in the most high stakes possible way that the path and the goal were never the same thing. The path got worse. The goal stayed exactly where it was. That's not an achievement of willpower. That's a demonstration of how he's actually built. The path changed completely. The goal didn't react. Here's the mechanism in plain language. Zoro doesn't have a higher tolerance for uncertainty than most people. He doesn't suppress doubt better. He isn't more disciplined. He hasn't trained himself to push through the discomfort of not knowing the way. The path being unclear simply isn't information about the goal. Most people treat path clarity as information about the goal. When the route is clear, the goals feel real. When the route gets foggy, the goal starts to feel uncertain. The two things move together because they've been filed in the same place. Zoro never filed them together. For him, information about the path tells you about the path. It tells you nothing about whether the destination is real. One more time. Gets lost for 1,000 episodes, goal never moves. Those aren't two separate facts that happen to coexist. They're the same fact stated twice. Because for Zoro, the path and the goal were always different files. So here's what that means for you specifically. The goal you backed away from didn't become less real when the path got unclear. The path got unclear. That's all that happened. The goal is in a different file. It was always in a different file. You just didn't know you could treat it that way. Nami's goal survived 8 years of impossible path. The moment the path opened, it was still there, exactly where she left it. Because goals don't expire when the path gets hard. They wait. 1,000 episodes of getting lost, the goal exactly where it started. The path and the goal were never the same variable. They never had to be. The route is a detail. The goal is the thing. And knowing which is which changes everything about how far you actually go. If that landed, if you got a goal sitting somewhere that the path made feel out of reach, there's something I want you to do before you close this video. We built a free quiz that identifies your specific anime character archetype based on how you actually operate. Not how you want to operate, how you actually operate. The reason it matters after this video, Zoro's way of thinking isn't where everyone starts. Your archetype shows you exactly where you are right now with your goals, and the most direct way forward from there. Not from Zoro's starting point, from yours. The links in the description takes 2 minutes. Still lost, still going, the goal never needed the path. Until next time, crew, under the glow of stars, we forge our future together. Captain Gio Bravo, signing off. Peace.